Why children need their fathers to be present in the home. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. And as a nation, generally we recognize the role of the mother. And don't get me wrong, they're all celebrated as to what she does for her family, considering that, women have all the people. They give birth to all the people and they raise these beautiful children and they help care for the kids whilst being there for her husband and trying to make things as stress-free as she possibly can. However, conversely, the role of a father in our society often goes unnoticed. And in recent years, the role of a father has been heavily discounted. And partly this could be to, the kind of hate that's going towards men. For example, them being called misogynists, pigs, the whole throwing out the patriarchy by, the whole toxic masculinity kind of thing. And being a masculine man and being who a man's supposed to be is been shunned and heavily frowned upon in today's society. And thus, the purpose of this video is to show the importance of why having a father in the home. In other words, why we need fathers to be present in their families, as well as the reason why children need to have this father present, just as much as they need to have the mother in the home. And so first off, I'm going to list off some stats. So in the United States, nearly 25 million children live without their biological father, and this is 34% of children. So basically, about 1 in 3 kids live at home without their father present. Furthermore, fathers are absent from approximately 80% of single-parent homes. So this means 80% of single-parent homes have the mother present, and then the other 20% is just the father present, and then there's no mother in the picture. Fatherless families are 4 times more likely to live in poverty than when compared to married couple families. Fatherless children are more likely to abuse drugs and show signs of delinquent behavior. Children from single-parent families are twice as likely to suffer from mental health problems when compared to those who have parents that are married. 84% of homeless families have no father present. 90% of homeless and runaway children come from fatherless homes. 63% of youth suicides come from fatherless homes, or come from children that were raised in fatherless homes. 85% of children who exhibit behavior disorders come from fatherless homes. 85% of youth children that are in prison come from fatherless homes. 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. And children that don't have a dad present in the home are 100 times more likely, or they have 100 times of a higher risk of being fatally abused. So basically being abused to death. And according to a report conducted by the Family Research Council, according to a 2003 study of 700 girls whose fathers left the family earlier in their lives had the highest rates of both early sexual activity and adolescent pregnancy, followed by those whose fathers left at an later age, followed by girls whose fathers were present the whole time. So basically, the girls or daughters that didn't have their fathers present had the highest risk, or that the highest early sexual activity and the highest rates of pregnancy. And then in the middle, it was the fathers who are present, later in their life, but then left. And then the lowest rate of these two were the daughters that had their father present the entire time. Just to kind of make that a little simpler for you guys. Furthermore, a study that was addressing the factors related to, these adolescent girls' sexual activity, which includes race, someone's age, and someone's delinquency. They found that the involvement of a father was the only factor that decreased the odds of engaging in sexual activity. And surprisingly, none of the other family processes was found to be significant. So the only thing that mattered was whether a father was in the home or not. And this was echoed by the Marriage and Religion Research Institute, also known as MARI, which indicated that a girl whose father leaves before she's 5 years old is 8 times more likely to have an adolescent pregnancy than a girl whose father remains in the home. And additionally, this also affects, Black Americans as well, as Black girls are 42% less likely to have sexual intercourse before the age of 18 if their biological father is present in the home. And so this goes for, this affects both boys and girls, which is why both sexes need to have a father present in the home. Furthermore, according to a study which was conducted by the Journal of the Human Behavior and Evolution Society, women whose parents separated between their birth and 6 years old experienced twice the risk of having an early menstruation, as well as more than 4 times the risk of having sexual intercourse early, as well as having 2.5 times higher risk of early pregnancy when compared to women that were in intact families. And so basically, the longer a woman lived with both parents, the lower her risk of having early reproductive development was. And so, in another study too, some other studies also show that being raised by a single mother increases the risk of teen pregnancy, as well as marrying someone with a high school degree, that doesn't even have a high school degree, as well as getting married where both partners don't even have a high school degree, which can evidently set the children up for, at the very least, a big step back. And according to some data from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, also known as the HHS, one of their studies of child abuse and neglect strongly imply that in many cases, the absence of a biological father contributes to an increased risk of child mistreatment. And so what this means is basically child abuse. And so the risk of child abuse is 3.5 times more likely if the child is living in a single parent household. Furthermore, if the parent is living with another adult, the risk is multiplied by 10. And so you may be asking, Mateo, you just listed off a bunch of statistics. It's bad, we understand. How can we fix this? And I have a couple of options. Some are government-wide, some are, community-oriented. Excuse me. And here they are. The first one could be the government could issue tax incentives for people who are having children. For example, maybe you could have a $5,000 tax credit for having one kid and $7,500 for having 2 kids, or maybe $10,000, like $5,000 per kid. So that way, it in a way discourages fathers from leaving their families behind by helping the fathers out financially, so they don't feel, there's such a burden for, them to run away and be like, peace out, we're gone. The second one could be that you could introduce a large mentorship organization where a lot of successful men could act as a sort of father figure to these fatherless men or fatherless women. And then if they're younger, the boys and girls who are trying to figure out life without a father. And these people would be thoroughly vetted, making sure they're not criminals or, just evil people. And that are also successful people, that are genuinely good people, and they have a sense of fulfillment. So they are very happy with they are right now. So they can be ready to lead people and sort of lead the way and sort of bring light to other people's lives and basically show to them that things will be okay and that you don't have to worry just because you're dealt a bad hand. Just because you're dealt a bad hand doesn't mean you're going to fail. And another one could be, and then the last one is that you can make it harder. This is going to be a controversial one as well, but I'm just going to say it. You can make it harder for women to divorce men, so that way so many more children aren't left without a father. And I have some statistics as well. So fathers are granted custody only 18.3% of the time, while mothers are awarded child support nearly twice as often as the fathers. Furthermore, fathers are awarded custody nearly 10% less on average in legal battles. The good news is that for men, fathers tend to win about 60% of child custody disputes that end up going to trial. However, one of the big issues with this is that going to trial, it costs tens of thousands of dollars. And so not every man's going to have that. More men than not are not going to, more men are not going to be able to afford going to trial just to see their kids more. And so as a result, as reflected in the data, it represents only about 4% of child custody cases. So basically, in only 4% of men ended up going to court to be able to have either joint custody or full custody of their children. And as I go back to the main point, making it harder for women to divorce men could be done by getting rid of no-fault divorce. So, if a woman wakes up and is like, oh yeah, I don't love you anymore, I'm gone. It's like, you were a good man to me, or you were good to me, you were a good man, you did all the right things, but I don't feel anything anymore, so I'm gone. So they can't do that. Basically, the only way a woman could leave is if there was abuse present in the relationship. So if it's a safety hazard for her to stay married to this man, then she can leave. But it's not the whole, I feel like doing something else and, whatever. I basically, again, I don't love you anymore, I'm gone. It's not that you've done anything bad to me. I just don't feel anything, and I want to, they make up whatever reason it is for why they divorced them. And so, that should, by doing that, it would reduce the divorce rates by, it should be a sizable margin, considering hopefully it's not as much, it's not as very high when it comes to the abuses that are in marriages, whilst still allowing the wives that want to get out of these abusive marriages to be able to do so. So anyways, if you reached the end of this video, feel free to give it a like or a comment or subscribe to my channel. And I hope this resonated with you guys. We always need a father in the home. I don't know where I'd be without my dad, personally. And so I'm very grateful for what he does. Really can't thank him enough, you know. And so, yeah. But anyways, yeah, that'll do it for this video. Thank you for your time, and take care.